Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio and we're going to talk about the referee a lot. Well, probably not a lot about the referee, but more about the VAR and what's going on with the VAR. Because this weekend we had so many things to discuss about VAR, and in particular about the Lazio game. Lazio, who unfortunately lost against Juventus away. And last time, Alasdair, we beat Juventus away was 2017 with Stakosha saving a penalty in the last seconds to Dybala. So it's been ages. And as I said, every time something happens when we play away against Torino. Last year, you remember the first goal of Juventus, the ball, was it in, was it out? It looks like it was out, and the VR didn't do nothing, so the goal was allowed. This time, Alasdair, I was concerned the first 15 minutes because this season we concede every time a goal in the first 15 minutes. So I said, if we pass the first 15 minutes, we should be okay. And instead, we dominate the first 20 minutes, and then Romagnoli with the red card, and the game completely changed, right?
Yeah, and it's just such a shame because when you lose a player so early, obviously the entire dynamic of the game changes. And I think this test came at a really interesting time because, like you say, it's not a place we've had a lot of success, to say the least, in recent years. But Juventus haven't been great, to be honest, recently. So I think it was quite a good time to go up there because Lazio's form versus Juventus's would give us the belief that we can go there and actually do something. But it's really hard to do that with 10 men, and particularly with 10 men for the vast majority of the game, because they had to hold on for, 70, 75 minutes in the end. So I think we saw a different side to this Lazio, and to be honest, I think there's plenty of encouraging stuff from this game again. And if you think about that, okay, it's another defeat, but now the two defeats we've spoken about have been, the last two anyway, will be almost identical, which is this one, the Fiorentina one, where we basically are unhappy with the refereeing decision, but generally think the performance was okay. And I think that's probably more important in the end, is that I feel like the team didn't completely capitulate. But yeah, there's no way around it, Vittorio. I think we're going to have to unleash the Campanile refereeing rants one more time.
Yeah, I mean, before we talk about the referee, there's so many episodes we have to talk about. If you want to see the glass, I mean, in the away games, Lazio have won just two, and I'm talking even about the Dynamo Kiev in Europe League. Otherwise, in Serie A, we played already 4 away games and won just one. But if you want to see the glass full, half full, except the Udinese game, I thought we played much better than the opponent in all the other games, right? Torino, we won. Juventus, we didn't win. But, I mean, we probably played better. Against Fiorentina, I mean, we should have won that game. So, I mean, yes, we lost. And we're not making a lot of points away from the Stadio Olimpico. But the performance is there, right, Alasdair? Should we be happy about that?
Well, like I say, it's hard to be delighted when you lose a game, but I think the bigger picture is that we saw Lazio in this game have to play a different way, because the whole narrative around this team this season has been they're playing an ultra attacking style of football. Their attitude is essentially, we will score more goals than you because we're not keeping clean sheets, but we're still managing to get good results and win games. So this situation meant that Lazio had to suddenly adopt a completely alien style of football, which was defending deep, 2 banks of 4, trying to get on the counter when they could, but really soak up pressure, restrict the space, do all the defensive dirty work, and really dig in. And that is something that Lazio just haven't done at all this season, because it is the complete opposite of what Baroni's vision is for this team. So to see that they could do that, and to see that they could do it in a way that, okay, it's another defeat, but was quite encouraging. There is the caveat, which is obviously that Juventus can't really score any goals at the best of times. But even so, that is a talented squad, no matter what troubles they've had or form they've been in. And when you lose, it wasn't just losing a player, it was losing Alessio Romagnoli, who's supposed to be the defensive leader of this team, although we can maybe discuss that in a little bit. So they had to rejig things. They had to also do this with quite an attack-minded team still on the pitch. So it's quite funny when you're defending with two banks of four, but in one of those banks, you've got, Zaccagni and Isaacson and Nuno Tavares, who's not exactly a backs-to-the-wall defender at the best of times. So I think that is an encouragement because it goes to show they can do this. Ultimately, it's an own goal, a frustrating one, a bit of a brain fart from Gila, to be honest, and you lose the game from that. But I think seeing that this team is capable of playing that way is going to encourage Baroni, and I think should encourage us as fans as well.
So let's start from the first big episode, I would say, the red card to Romagnoli. There have been a lot of discussion in Rome so far because, people said, well, it wasn't a really bad tackle. Yesterday, Cristante wasn't sent off. So what's your take on that? Was it the right decision to send off Romagnoli and give him a red card?
I think so, yeah. I think it's pretty cut and dry. The rules are quite clear on this one. And look, there's no one coming back to support him. He is alone with Kalulu coming through. That's the big difference between this and the Cristante one, where there's two defenders going for the same ball, basically. Romagnoli, you can tell he knows he's got it wrong because he goes off his feet, and before he's even made contact, he's kind of raising his arms up and trying to pull his legs out, but he does make contact. So that tells you that he knows he's timed it wrong. Because he wasn't at any point trying to claim, I got the ball, it's a clean challenge. He basically bailed on his tackle before he'd even finished doing it. And if you bring down a player who's one-on-one with the goalkeeper and there's no one else around to help, that is a red card. So I don't have an issue with that decision. I have an issue with Romagnoli's decision-making there, rather, because moments like that, you have to be completely sure, and okay, maybe it's difficult because you're making a lot of decisions very quickly in your mind, and you're thinking, okay, if I can get him outside the box, at least if I go off, it's not a penalty. But you can also make the decision, right, am I better? This is Pierre Kalulu we're talking about. Let's leave him one-on-one with Provedel and back Provedel to sort this out, So,
yeah. We have to say two things about that. The first one is that it wasn't Romagnoli take the blame for the red card, etc., but it wasn't his fault, right? Kalulu is completely free. There is a miscommunication in front of Romagnoli, and he's the last opponent, so he has to take a decision. And I agree with you. I mean, that's Kalulu. I would have maybe pushed him a little bit to take him off balance and see what happens in front of Provedel. We have a very good goalkeeper, and even if he scores, I agree that it's very difficult to score against this Juventus team. But in the first 20 minutes, Lazio was creating chances. So, even if Kalulu scores, which I'm not convinced would have happened, Lazio still had a chance to find the equalizer and maybe come back with 1 point from Turin. So I think it was a red card, point number one. But if I'm Romagnoli, obviously, now it's easier. I'm sitting here in the chair 2 days later and said, yeah, he should have allowed Kalulu to try and score. But yeah, probably that would have been the best option for Lazio. And the red card of Romagnoli changed everything because, unfortunately, Juventus had a lot of players missing, but we had Ventusi playing and he had a problem. Tavares wasn't well. Patrick was on the bench because he wasn't 100% fit. So, we played one man down for 75 minutes with a lot of players not 100% fit. So maybe it was better to be down 1-0, but playing with 11 players and have a chance to maybe even win this game. Juventus, as you were mentioning, is not playing great football. And even with one man up, they had one shot on target in all the game. So I wasn't impressed by this Juventus team. So probably, without the red card, would have been a completely different game. Alasdair, are you still with us?
Changing my location to see if I can. I'm still with you. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, of course. Your internet is worse than Lazio's defense, I would say, and it's very hard. Huh?
It was doing fine, and then it just, as soon as it heard you complaining about the referee, it decided to give up. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. It's like I said, it's not an easy thing for Romagnoli to do, to make those decisions in that kind of space of time. It all happens so quickly. But ultimately, the strange thing is, last season you kind of would have understood that a bit more, because last season, and generally under Sarri, going 1-0 down doesn't matter who you're playing. That's a disaster, because we never made comebacks. Yeah. As soon as we were behind in a game, we were never going to win that game. But the approach is completely different now. So, like I've just said at the start, we don't need to really worry as much about conceding goals, because the approach of this team is generally that we will concede goals, but we're going to score more. So I guess that might take a bit of adjusting to for the players as well, to get used to that idea that conceding a goal, even in Turin against Juventus, isn't necessarily a disaster, because we can back ourselves to do that. But I do think, obviously, with 10, it's going to be almost impossible to continue that style of football. We can't flood the numbers forward in the same way. We can't play with the same intensity. We can't, have those movements between midfield and attack linking up the same way. So, yeah, it is frustrating, because, like I say, it would have been nice to see that Lazio, that attacking Lazio, take on this match properly. But I guess we'll get other chances, but it does feel like a missed opportunity, because, like I say, Juventus haven't been in a great spot, so it felt like a good moment to actually try and improve that record.
Do you agree with the decision of Baroni to sub Dia? I mean, Isaacsen didn't have a great game, and I think in that position, Isaacsen have struggled a lot. It's true that Dia came back on Wednesday. He didn't train on Thursday. He just had a light training on Friday, so he wasn't 100% fit. But maybe considering you're going to play, counter-attack football, Dia was a better option than probably Castellanos, or maybe put it on the left side and play with Castellanos centrally and Dia on the left instead of Isaacsen.
I don't know. I mean, I think 4-4-1 is the kind of go-to 10-man formation. And if you're only having one striker up there, you can see how he chose Tati, because he works so hard. He's very selfless, and he does hold the ball well and link up with his teammates well. So I guess if you're looking at just having one guy up there who's a kind of outlet to relieve the pressure, he might have seen Tati as being the better option. Yeah, I mean, it was always going to be difficult. I don't think that was probably a moment to throw Dia on the wing for the first time and hope for the best. But yeah, I mean, I think but they did play well. They did. We can't be too critical of Baroni's choices or team's performance, because even looking at the highlights again, there's Douglas Luiz missed a big chance. Gatti had a good chance. Vlahovic hit the bar, which was from a bit of a mistake from Gila. But it wasn't like they were constantly bombarding the goal. And that's encouraging from a structural perspective. But we need to get on to the Douglas Luiz Patrick moment, Vittorio. Do you want to take a?
I mean,
throw a punch at that one.
I mean, I listened last night to the audio of the VAR that was Di Paolo, who was talking with the referee. And I think if he doesn't get fired today, then there's something wrong with the referee federation in Italy. Because, I mean, saying it's nothing, looking at the images, so it's not that you didn't see nothing, but saying that was nothing, that's an incredible mistake. And I thought, Alasdair, that he was so fast in making that decision that is very suspicious. It reminded me a lot about the Patrick situation against Fiorentina. Do you remember the step on foot? Again, even there, the VAR and was Abisso pretty much finished that review in 30 seconds. So I honestly don't understand. I mean, Rocky yesterday said it's not the intensity, it's what Douglas Luiz is doing. He's trying to hit Patrick. It's not Patrick's fault if he is not hitting him that hard. It's simply Douglas Luiz is not even good enough to punch someone. But it's not the intensity, it's the intention. And that's a red card. No discussion about that. No discussion, right?
Yeah. I mean, firstly, it's been a strange season with this because it has felt a bit like we've gone back in time where generally over the last couple of years, back in Scotland, people are always complaining about VAR. In England, they're often complaining about VAR. And when I've been asked about it in Italy, I've generally said, well, kind of got used to it, and it was kind of working all right in the sense that people stopped complaining about it at a certain point, which for me is a great success in Italy, where everyone loves complaining about referees. But this season, it is just kind of, they've lost their heads completely. And Lazio have been victims of that, but it has been happening across the league. And it's become a big talking point again, where it's filling newspaper pages and it's been a debate. And the use of VAR, the moments that they're choosing to review or not review subjects, is a big issue. And this is the second time in quick succession that we've been talking about this with Lazio. And it wasn't a difficult one to see. This wasn't one of these odd secret moments. You'll watch a game, even on TV, and then like an hour after full time, someone will have clipped up something on Twitter that everyone has missed. And then it becomes a big talking point. It wasn't one of those things. It was, you could see it live pretty much, that he'd at least swiveled his body with the closed fist. So I did think, to begin with, I didn't think there was much to it, because it wasn't like he actually threw a punch. It was more a kind of frustration thing. But I at least thought, okay, well, we need to surely someone needs to be checking that, because you could see the bunched fist. I guess the good thing about us actually, the game being on a Saturday night and us doing this on a Monday lunchtime, is that by now we've already had the acceptance, which was Gianluca Rocchi basically going on the TV last night and saying that they did get it wrong. Who's the referee designator? So it doesn't help us, though, does it? Getting the admittance of failure doesn't really help.
I mean, Noslin got the red card in the Europe League for pretty much the same thing. He didn't kill the defender of Dynamo Kiev, but it was evident that was something wrong, right? He shoveled the player, and that's a red card. Same thing with Douglas Luiz. I mean, it's not a discussion. It's funny enough that Juventus fan on my Italian YouTube channel started complaining. He said, no, he didn't do nothing. He didn't touch it. It wasn't that hard. It doesn't care. It doesn't matter. It's not the intensity. It's the intention of the player. So that's embarrassing. And again, let's point it out. The referee has nothing to do with that, because he couldn't see it. But the VR, he checked it. He had the right image and didn't call him. That's simply unacceptable. Because, I mean, Rocky said, well, the referee has to do a little bit of interpretation, etc. That's clear. That's textbook. That's a red card, full stop. And you don't have to discuss about that. The fact that there are people discussing about that, saying that it wasn't a red card, this is where the problem is, right? Because when it's going to be against you in favor of Juventus, they're gonna complain and say, that's a red card. Wait a minute. When it was in your favor, it wasn't that hard, so it wasn't a red card, etc. When it's for your club, then suddenly it becomes a red card. This is one of the problems we are facing here in Italy.
Yeah, and I do wonder if, I saw the statistics last week about how Italy is once again kind of shot to the top of the table of penalties given. And you remember a few years ago, around when the handball rule became such a disaster, and there were so many penalties being given in Serie A because basically any contact with the hand was a penalty.
Yep.
Which, by the way, people seem to still not understand that rule has changed, and it drives me insane. But anyway, now I do wonder if they're just trying to be a bit more cautious about giving penalties. But that's not their job. It's not their job to worry about how many are being given and bringing the total down. The job is to apply the laws of the game. And the job of the VAR is to see things that the referee can't see. Because to be honest, none of this is actually the referee's fault.
No.
And he will probably end up getting abuse for this, but he doesn't really deserve it because you can't see everything that happens on a football pitch. But that's the whole point of VAR being introduced in the first place. So,
well, I would argue that in the first half, there are at least 5 yellow cards missing for the Juventus player. They made some bad tackles, some fouls that deserve a yellow card. So, who was it? Sacchi should deserve a little bit of blame because Juventus players, they had at least 5-6 yellow card missing. But on that episode, I think the ref has nothing to do with that. It's Di Paolo that got it completely wrong. And the problem is that 30 seconds later, Juventus score. So, if we are back on 10 against 10, I don't think Juventus is going to win that game, even because they were struggling even with Lazio 1 man down. So, I thought Juventus start pushing in the end of the game because we had so many players tired. Tavares had to be subbed. Gila wasn't great. He was going to be subbed if Tavares didn't ask to get off the pitch. Castellano had problems, and so Guendouzi played, but he had, he was one of the question mark we had going through the game. So I think that had a huge impact. And if we were back 10 against 10, it would have been completely different.
Okay, so we have gone through the refereeing decisions. We've accepted that it was a pretty good performance generally defensively. But I do think that something I do want to talk about on a more negative sense is our centre-backs, which I do think is becoming a bit of a concern. And not necessarily just because of, that was what decided this game, Romagnoli's red card and Gila's own goal. But it's not actually just because of that. I just feel that we are quite short in that area, which is something I started saying at the beginning of last season, and that the guys we've got there aren't necessarily performing at the level that we need them to when we're playing this style of football. Because I think having a central defensive partnership that is completely rock solid is fundamental to making this system work. And I just don't feel like I'm not feeling that level of trust towards our centre-backs this season. I think a few more errors are creeping in. We've spoken before about how it's a big season for Gila to actually consolidate his breakthrough year, and I'm not sure he's doing that quite yet.
No.
We haven't seen Gigo yet, so who knows? But it does feel a bit thin to me, Vittorio, and I am worried about the form of these players. Do you share that concern, or are you okay with it?
Well, we have to say that I think it's 1 year that Romagnoli is not playing at his best. Even last season, he was making a lot of mistakes, didn't look the leader he was the first year with Maurizio Sarri. So we already struggled a lot last season. And we have to say that pretty much Gila was the brightest spot last year. He was a little bit the surprise that kept us up because Casale, it's a disaster, and he's doing that even at Bologna. I don't know if you saw last Saturday the goal Genoa scored thanks to Casale. But anyway, Casale is not here anymore. I don't think he's coming back, but who knows? Patrick is injury prone. I think this season he didn't start. He started less than half of the games so far, and not because Gila was available, because in the first 2 games of the season, Baroni started Casale rather than Patrick because Patrick is not fit. So that's the biggest problem, because if you're great but you're never playing, then we need to find a replacement. And this is one of the concerns with Patrick. On the other hand, Gila missed all the Alonso training, summer training. You can see that he's not 100%. And I think he's not playing at the level of last year. I think he's. Let's not talk about I'm not talking about the own goal, because that can happen. But I thought overall against Juventus, he didn't play a great game. And to be honest with you, Vlahovic is not at the moment a big striker. So I think that's a big issue for us. And Gigot would have come in on Saturday if Nuno Tavares didn't ask to be substituted. So that would be interesting to see Gigot playing such a big game. He's our biggest question mark, right? We didn't see him playing. I think Thursday he's going to start, because with this situation, probably it's going to be Gigot and Romagnoli playing. But yeah, I mean, we should have had another central defender there. And I mean, the plan B is Marusic, which is a concern, right? I mean, Marusic, central defender, it's a big question mark, and it's not his job there. So this summer, I would have definitely signed another central defender.
Yeah, I think he'll. I think, to be honest, there are some own goals where you're like, it's just bad luck. I think this one was a mistake, actually, because he shouldn't have done it. He shouldn't have touched it. Provedel is behind him, ready to take that cross. It's not dangerous. He's had the shout. And I think that's why he looked so upset when it went in, because he realized he had made a mistake. And obviously they'd held on for so long before then. But also, even when Vlahovic hit the bar, that comes from a bit of an error from him too. So, I think Gila and Patrick are both guys who've had great periods of form, but who we can't quite say yet are like ready to consistently perform at that really high level. Romagnoli, we've seen do that, but like you say, for at least, a year and a half, who knows? It's just not been at the same level he started. His first season was so impressive, and then it's not been quite the same since. So we really need to, as fans, just be crossing fingers that this Gigot guy is amazing. And it would surprise me, given how late he came in, how low the price was, and the fact that he wasn't really seemingly getting much game time at Marseille in the first place. But you never know.
Yeah, even because we didn't mention, Gila wasn't 100% fit. So he already missed a lot of games so far. We already have Patrick, that is a player who's often injured. If Gila is the same type of Patrick, then we're going to see Gigot playing a lot. We hope that he's a great signing, because otherwise it's going to be a big, big concern for us. And we are still in October. January is far away. And so if we need to find another central defender, we're going to have to wait 2 months. At the same time, Gigot, Romagnoli, we have to see if they fit well together, if they are the perfect solution we have. But so far this season, we conceded a lot of goals, and a lot of them were from mistakes of our not central defenders in particular, but from our team. And I don't know, we need something better. And Thursday there's a very important game, and we don't know who's going to be available there. This is another point we have to raise. Lazio is going to play till what is it, beginning of November, every 3 days. And Tavares came off. Gila wasn't 100% fit. Romagnoli will be suspended next game in Serie A. Patrick is not 100% fit. Gigot still didn't play a single minute. We have so many question marks back there that is concerning.
So on Thursday in the Netherlands, are you expecting big changes then? I mean, Baroni's seemingly doing, 5 or 6
Yep.
so far per European match?
Well, I think Romagnoli is going to start, obviously. He's going to miss Lazio Genoa. And he played, 27 minutes Saturday? So he should be fresh enough. And maybe Gigot is going to start with him. So we're going to try this tandem. Obviously, with Lazzari out, I think Marozic is going to start even in Europe League. And on the other side, probably Pellegrini would be a wise decision, seeing how Tavares finished I think he had just cramps, but, it's always better to be careful with that type of player, looking his history of injuries. But yeah, I expect a lot of turnover, without forgetting that if you win in Netherlands, I don't want to say you're pretty much qualified, but I mean, you're nearly there, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been such a good start in Europe that it'd be nice to keep that going. And, we've still got 5 more games after this one. So I don't know if we're nearly there. But yeah, in terms of finishing in that top, 2024? Is that right? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That you need to qualify, then yeah, that will start looking pretty safe with 9 points. I saw a little bit of their game against Man United in the opening week. They got a 1-1 draw at Old Trafford. I mean, again, drawing with Man United isn't what it used to be, you have to say.
Yeah.
But still, they dug in really well in that game and took their chance well. Actually, when it arrived as well, I thought they looked like a decent team then. So I think they'll be quite a tricky opponent, actually. But yeah, it's a chance again, like we've been saying previously. It's so important, especially when we're starting to get a few injuries and health issues and things. So important that the guys who do come in for these matches see them as a big opportunity and see them as a chance to try and win a shirt for the weekend in Serie A as well. And, Deli Bashiru has been pretty hot and cold, I guess, so far, but looks like a really interesting player we want to see more of. Same with Shauna, yet to really get going. Noslin, these guys, there are really interesting options there who we've seen these sparks from, and it would be nice for Europe to be a place for them to really express themselves.
Can I ask you, because I don't agree with the decision Baroni took in the second half against Lazio in Juventus Lazio, the substitution, bringing in Pedro and Castrovilli. I thought with Lazio struggling, I thought maybe Adele Bashiro that it's more physical, and Shauna on the other side, another physical player, would have been a better option than Pedro. I know Pedro has a lot of experience, but we saw he was struggling to take the ball and run away with it. Again, on the other side, Castrovilli was pretty much invisible. Again, you put Dele Bashiro there, that has a big body. You can throw the ball to him and hope that he can keep it there and make the team a little bit push further, which didn't happen with Castrovilli and Pedro. So, don't know. Were you surprised to see Pedro coming in that type of situation? And again, Castrovilli, because he played in the left side of the midfield, not centrally. So, not his position, right?
Yeah, I mean, that surprised me. Pedro, not so much just because of the form he's been in. I think that Baroni just felt like you need to give him a go because he's been so decisive recently. But Castrovilli coming in on the left was obviously more of a surprise, considering that not being his position. I mean, the stuff you're talking about is more what they can do on the ball, whereas it struck me that he made those decisions for what they were going to do off the ball. And that didn't seem particularly obvious to me. Castrovilli is a guy you would think of more naturally as an on-the-ball player than an off-the-ball player, but he was basically doubling up at left-back, it seemed. He was kind of in there with Pellegrini all the time, and they were just kind of creating that wall. So I don't know, maybe Baroni sees him as someone who's really going to be positionally disciplined in a way that Deli Bashiro might not be, or that Shauna might not be. I'm not sure. I guess at that phase of the game, he was probably looking to protect the draw and just get some fresh legs and some new kind of focus organization into the game. So, yeah, I mean, they did all right, I guess, because there wasn't that much being given away. So you can't really complain about it. And ultimately, the goal is our own doing rather than Juventus carving us open.
Yeah, but in the last 15 minutes, we were really struggling. You could see that our team was tired. So if you could take a long ball from Provedel and keep it on in the Juventus half for a couple of minutes, this would have for me a huge impact. And we'll never find out if it would have worked because we can go back in time and play Dele Bashir instead of Castrovilli. But I think that would have been the better option. On the other side, we have to say that I think Castrovilli will struggle a lot this season because in the 4-3-3, he has a position, right? He's the box-to-box midfielder. But in the 4-2-3, I think he's not enough defensive to play in front of the defense. And he's not a trequartista. So if we put him there, he's not going to play at his best. So I think Castrovilli at the moment doesn't have a position in our squad. And this, I think, creates problem because, I mean, on the bench, we had Jess Vecino in midfield. Who could you put there, right? By the way, this week when Dosi was out, injured, etc., and we didn't have that many options, Patrick played instead of Rovella in the training. So he could be plan C.
They've been listening to Vittorio's tactical tweaks.
Obviously. I mean, it makes sense. We don't have any options. So at least Patrick has good feet, can defend, could be a mediano there, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I do think, like from what we've just discussed, it does seem so obvious that in January we could really do with a centre back and a centre mid, which means that it is almost guaranteed not to happen. If we sign anyone in January, it'll be deadline day and we'll get another winger.
and Alasdair, we have to mention one thing because our list is full. So, or we sign a former Lazio academy or an under 22, or otherwise, if someone come in, someone has to get out. And I don't know. The only player you could sell now is what? Pedro?
Well,
Maybe
there's a central midfielder playing for Fiorentina who looks really good. He scored 2 goals at the weekend, and he looks like a really quality player. Actually, I can't. Can you remember what his name is?
Yeah, I think I saw him playing sometimes. Right. I mean, I know. He's not, I know he's not Andrea Pirlo, but it would have been so good to have him. It's an option that we don't have anymore. I mean, selling Cataldi didn't make sense, especially because it's not like Fiorentina offered us like 20 million euros. It's 4 million euros for a player with that experience. It doesn't make sense.
No. What can we do? Oh, well. I think that's probably it for today. Is it?
We're finishing on a high point. Yeah. Well, we have to say that after this game, Lazio has 4 Serie A games that are achievable, right? We have Genoa at home next Sunday. We have, what is it, Como away before? Or
yeah,
Como, Cagliari, and then Monza. So, there are 4 games achievable. You can win both of them. All 4 of them. We could go to the next break in a nice position in the Serie A table, right?
Yeah, it'd be nice. It's relentless, isn't it? There's these 3 international breaks, and just between them, it's just completely nonstop. The other thing is, obviously, there are quite a lot of players who are away during those international breaks, either traveling huge distances or playing, 2 90-minute games. And should give Guendouzi a shout out actually for not just getting in a starting place in the France team, but scoring a goal and setting up another one in one of their games at the break as well. So Guendouzi being recognised in one of the best international teams in the world is not bad.
Honestly, I don't remember international breaks with so many Lazio players scoring. Dele Bashiru scored, Isaksen scored, Guendouzi scored. I mean, everybody scored pretty much.
Yeah, Isaksen as well. Yeah, that got Karsten very excited.
Yeah,
so,
player of the game. I mean, come on.
Need to get him doing that for Lazio. Would be nice.
Yeah, that's another thing. Alasdair, thanks for joining me. Thanks everybody for listening. Please rate and review the podcast. And remember, Thursday, 20 Lazio, very important game for our Europa League competition and campaign. And then Sunday, 3 o'clock kickoff, Alasdair. I'm getting used to that. Lazio Genoa. I mean, we had so many issues with Genoa that I'm a little bit concerned about that game. And even the time is terrible. We're playing in Netherlands at 9 o'clock on Thursday and 3 o'clock kickoff on Sunday. That's a disgrace from Serie A. But we're getting used to that, right, Alasdair?
You've got to be beating Genoa at home, though. I mean, that is right now a game that you have to win. They're in a lot of trouble, I think. I mean, I saw a bit of their game against Bologna, and Bologna made a real mess of that. Nicolo Casale made a real mess of that, and from 2-0 up to throw it away to 2-0. So I don't know. I mean, I guess that might give them a bit of an injection of confidence before this game, and Gilardino's been kind of clinging on a little bit, probably. But I think that's a game Lazio have to win.
Well, that's a discussion for another podcast. Thanks again, Alasdair. Thanks everybody for listening. Take care, and we'll get back as soon as possible.